24 and 4. The following is an outline of how costs can be saved and the savings converted into a shorter work week. It was originally written in the early 1990s. By better organizing our human resources, we can have a 24-hour work week in 4 years with more disposable time and funds for self, family, and community in a safer, saner world. At the turn of the 20th century, the average person worked over 70 hours a week. In less than 30 years, our ancestors took advantage of the time savings from their time-saving technology to reduce the work week to 40 hours. What was the time-saving technology? The agricultural and electrical revolution. Today, we are in the midst of the greatest time-saving revolution ever. What are we doing with the time savings? Are we converting it into a shorter work week so we can have more time for self, family, and community? No. For growing numbers, we are converting it into unemployment, underemployment, misemployment, and discouraged workers. For a few, we are converting it into overtime. We are converting misemployment into the rat race, road rage, spouse abuse, child abuse, drug abuse, and alcohol abuse. Since 1930, if we had converted our fears of inflation and of unemployment into a reduced work week, we would have a real 24-hour work week right now. As is, we have an unreal 24-hour work week, as rising costs eat away the time that we work for ourselves and for our freedom. As is, we have higher rates of taxes, crime, stress, violence, insurance, and usury. Costs that reduce our 40-hour work week to less than 24 hours in terms of the hours we work for ourselves. Each penny of higher cost is a reduction of your work week that you work for yourself. Timeism has a plan to reduce your total work week while increasing the number of hours that you work for yourself. In year 2000, out of the average 40-hour work week, the average American had 9 hours of disposable income. Which matters most, the dollars at the top of your paycheck or the dollars in the bottom of your pocket after you pay all must-pay bills? If you could trade your 40-hour work week with 9 hours of disposable income for a 24-hour work week with 12 hours of disposable income, would you? The process is simple. By better employing our human resources, we can have a 24-hour work week in 4 years with more disposable time and money for self, family, and community in a safer, saner world. Total taxes take about 40% of the average person's income. That is, the average person works 16 hours each week to pay taxes. If you could cut your weekly tax load by the equivalent of 8 hours of wages, would you be willing to work 8 hours less? The ironic catch-22 of most tax programs is to help the jobless or to keep jobs. If you hear an habitual politician cite jobs as the reason for a law, say, dumb. Let people work for themselves rather than tax me to support the unemployed. Cut the work week. If we work less so others can work for themselves, we will have less call for taxes. We can work less without loss of disposable income. Maybe check top will be smaller, but pockets will bulge larger. In recent years, the average person works 6 to 8 hours each week to directly or indirectly pay interest on loans. If you could reduce the interest charges on your loans by 4 hours, would you be willing to work 4 hours less? If the Fed fought inflation by reducing the work week, we could have 1 to 2% interest rates with fewer taxes to support photogenic misemployed workers. Guns are better at the Federal Reserve. The age-old question of where to spend public monies has a new twist. Where to have businesses pay higher costs to quell inflationary fears. The policy of the Federal Reserve is to raise interest rates, which of course puts money into the pockets of the people who don't work. The Fed increases the cost of the national debt. What if the Federal Reserve were empowered to start overtime at a lower rate? Business costs would be the same as raising the cost of borrowing money. Employment would continue, purchasing would continue, tax need and costs would not increase. Individual, family, and community stress would be less. But the people who live off of money earned mostly by their ancestors would not have more of a free ride. These are the people who are big political contributors, knowing that in the era of election-addicted habitual politicians, a small campaign bribe buys high interest rates. The average person works 6 to 8 hours each week to pay insurance costs. If you could cut your insurance costs by 4 hours, would you be willing to work for 4 hours less? Business benefits of 24 and 4. As employees are required to work longer and longer hours, the quality of work per hour decreases. If laws were changed so that there were no increased business costs, would you rather have one unhappy employee working 48 hours or 2 happy workers working 24 hours? Disposable income and 24 and 4. One's pay has 3 components, of which the final net amount is significant. The first level is the dollars at the top of your paycheck. The second is the dollars at the bottom of your paycheck after deductions for taxes. The third dollar figure is what's in the bottom of your pocket after necessary payout for basic needs: food, housing, clothing, transportation, insurance, and interest costs. Do the dollars in your pocket after deductions and payouts mean more than the dollars at the top of your paycheck? Too many people in societies go bankrupt chasing dollars at the top of the paycheck instead of what's free and clear at the bottom line. This graph shows how time is what matters, not money, which is mute. The standard of living is not how many dollars, yens, francs you have at the top of your paycheck. The standard of living is how many disposable hours of income you have after basic necessary payouts. The name and amount of money is moot. Weekly, would you rather earn $1 per hour and have $15 disposable income, or earn $1 million an hour and owe money? At $1 an hour, you have 15 hours of excess disposable work time. At $1 million an hour, you have no disposable work time. In 1914 Germany, before World War I, one could live on 4 marks a week in an economy of almost full employment. By 1920, you could not buy an egg for 100,000 marks in an economy with massive unemployment. In just a few years, the exchange rate of mark to dollar ratio went from 4 to 4.2 quadrillion. Which means more to you, the numbers on paper or the number of minutes to buy a decent standard of living? Nothing was a greater catalyst to the extremes of Hitler and Nazism than the reality and fear of people's time being enriched in symbolic numbers, while the substance numbers of survival became greater than the numbers of minutes in a day. In other words, most people could not find enough work to survive. Career promotions and 24 and 4. A 40% reduction in the work week from 40 hours to 24 hours is a 40% promotion rate. If your superior is working 40% less, someone has to fill those vacant hours at the higher rate of hourly compensation. Would you be willing to work 40% fewer hours if you could get a promotion, a raise, and more disposable hours of income? 24 and 4. Here's the solution. Racial harmony or discord. With an adjustment of the work week to share the time savings of technology, we will have full employment. We won't have the fear of stress and unrest that comes with some people hogging work. Instead of office politics to derail other careers, we will help each other regardless of differences from God and nature. We won't have the hypocrisy of the abolitionists. Free the slaves, but don't let them move up here to work. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. If you don't let him fish, then you must fish for him or die for your foolishness. It's great to be taught how to fish unless you're barred from the fishing hole. If life gives you lemons, then make lemonade, unless they don't let you drink some of the lemonade. It's great to make lemonade out of lemons as long as you're allowed to drink some of the lemonade. Freedom and happiness from 24 and 4. With a reduction in the work week, we would have more time to help ourselves and others. This would make our world more secure. Would you like more time for self, family, and community in a safer, saner world? With more free time, we could expand our education to work smarter, or we could start a business. Both of these would increase the ability to reduce the work week. We would find moments to smell the roses. Family and 24 and 4. Our present employment laws cause a lot of stressful misemployment. Some people work excessive overtime while others are denied worthwhile, meaningful work. Would your family be a happy, more functional family if you could earn the same or more disposable income in less time? Our misemployment policies cause significant stress, which leads to abuse of spouses, children, alcohol, and drugs. How much road rage is tied to the stress of work? Parenting and 24 and 4. Child care is very expensive. In the short term, the get ready and delivery time with child care fees and gasoline adds up to 12 work hours of average income. Add in the higher rate of illness from overcrowded daycare centers. The downstream cost of failed bonding and more alienation are much higher. If you are a parent and you could earn the same disposable income in 24 instead of 40 hours, would you have a better relationship with your children? With a 24-hour work week, child care would be a pleasant recollection rather than frustration trip of guilt, for parents will be able to juggle their schedules to have one parent free for child raising. Students. Who has not heard that the average kid will not have it as good as her parents or grandparents, especially when it comes to retirement? The reason is that we have converted the time savings of our technology into causing chronic, expensive problems rather than a quality of life improvement by reducing the work week. Would you like your offspring to have a better quality of life on and off the job? 24 and 4 is how. Crime reduction from 24 and 4. In 1996, I was robbed 3 times in 4 months by young people who had guns but not jobs. I started carrying 2 billfolds, one for my job and one for the jobless. The cure to everyday petty crime is a job. Do you think the world would be safer if employment was shared so that young people were allowed to learn the work ethic and have meaningful jobs? The cure to white-collar crime is honest, not habitual politicians. Global trade deficit. Every American product on the world market carries an inflated price reflecting the added cost of our misemployment policies. These costs include higher tax, insurance, crime, and interest rates. If we didn't have these added unnecessary costs, we wouldn't be shipping so many jobs overseas. Would your career, job, and retirement be safer if U.S. products were more competitively priced without the added cost from misemployment policies? If you want job security, support a reduced work week. National debt. How big is the national debt? $5 trillion. That's about $20,000 for each American alive today. Really, what is the national debt? The failure of habitual politicians to organize us to solve our problems. The number one economic problem is jobs. When we have a recession and rising unemployment, what do the politicians do? Job programs funded by deficit spending. Do you think the national debt would be less if the politicians cut the work week instead of using deficit spending to find unemployment? Every time politicians worry about their jobs, they legislate pork barrel jobs. To keep their jobs today, they tax our children and our grandchildren's future. Nice gift. Nice legacy. I'm sure our kids like that.
End of part 1. Please visit part 2.